Hello, my name's Rob. I'm part of the clergy team here at Portishead Church of England. Welcome to our thought for this week. I'm going to begin with some words from Matthew's Gospel, from the Sermon on the Mount, Matthew 5:43 to 46. Jesus said, "You have heard that it was said, 'You shall love your neighbour and hate your enemy.' But I say to you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, so that you may be children of your Father in heaven. For he makes his sun rise on the evil and on the good, and sends rain on the righteous and on the unrighteous. For if you love those who love you, what reward do you have?" I think many of us reading those words can be a little bit confused, because we think, well, I don't really have any enemies. I have people I don't like very much. I have people I don't see eye to eye with. But enemies? Well, not so much. What do I do with these words? Well, I was thinking about that when I was going in this week to our two church schools, St. Peter's and St. Trinity, to lead St. Peter's and Trinity, to lead their collective worship. And I was asked to go in and speak about a peacemaker. And so I thought about Desmond Tutu, the Archbishop of Cape Town, during the time before and after the end of apartheid in South Africa. And I've always been very struck by Desmond Tutu. He's an amazing man of peace. And there's a lovely story that I've heard about Desmond Tutu told by somebody else. This was a white member of the security forces in South Africa, and he'd been brought up, as white South Africans were during the time of apartheid, within a white bubble, really not having any contact with black South Africans. And he'd been brought up to really fear and indeed hate members of the ANC and Desmond Tutu, who he thought was a terrorist and a communist. And one day he was in an airport and he saw Desmond Tutu, and he was there in his purple bishop's regalia, well, his cassock, and their paths took them quite close to each other. And as this member of the security forces came close to Desmond Tutu, he just dropped his shoulder and he barged him, and Desmond Tutu fell to the ground. And for a moment he was stunned, and then he looked up, and there he was lying on his back with his hands and feet in the air, and he saw the man who'd barged him, and he broke into that wonderful Desmond Tutu smile, and he said, "God bless you, my child." And that really struck this man, because not immediately, but over time, he came to realize that the information he'd been given had been wrong. That actually that Desmond Tutu was not an evil man, but a good man. And slowly he changed his view. And actually that was the beginning of his own coming to faith in Jesus. But it also highlights what an extraordinary man Desmond Tutu was, because to behave in that way, you're not only talking the talk, you really are walking the walk. The words that he spoke about peace had settled deep within his own life. A couple of things that I think are important as we think about Desmond Tutu and we think about Jesus's command to love your enemy. The first of those is this wonderful South African idea of Ubuntu, which is a Zulu word, and it means I am because we are. And it's a wonderfully powerful idea, the sense that we really only learn to exist within community. I need you in order to really understand who I am. It's been said elsewhere, there's no such thing as a solitary Christian. We need others. We need others to really know ourselves. And that's, I think, part of what we do when we share the peace in church, something that many of us are not particularly comfortable with. but it reminds us that we're not just there as individuals, we're there together. And I do appreciate that some of you who'll be watching this are quite isolated for different reasons. And that's something that I think as a church we've got a little bit better at, but we've still got a long way to go in helping those who do feel on your own, who feel isolated, in really feeling that you're a part of the church. The second thing that Desmond Tutu said, which I think is very powerful, was this: if you want to make peace, you do not talk to your friends, you talk to your enemies. And even though we may feel that we do not have any enemies, we certainly in our society tend to listen to voices that we agree with. So often we make up our mind on something and then look for evidence to support that opinion, rather than really being open to all possibilities, and particularly speaking to those who we know are going to disagree with us. We run away from that kind of encounter. And yet it's so important that we understand that the world, and indeed the church, are made up of people who think and see things differently, and that together we make up the body of Christ. Together we make up this society of which we're a part. And we need to have the courage to really seek to listen and understand those we disagree with, or we think we disagree with, to come to know them as people. I think that's what Jesus was speaking about when he told us to love our enemies. And I'm sure it was what Desmond Tutu was talking about when he talked about listening to your enemies as well as your friends. Be prepared to hear voices that are not just going to support the views that we hold. It's really important. And I think particularly as we think about the church, we recognise that we're a diverse group of people coming together as the body of Christ. And that diversity is such an important aspect of who we are. It's not something to view as an inconvenience, but something to celebrate, to rejoice in. And where there are things that we disagree on, to really seek to listen and understand, and to show love to those whose opinions we actually find are quite hard. Well, it's been lovely to be with you. May God bless you in this coming week.